working out. They'll probably do it again.
All right. Okay. So this week, nobody, including not me, did send an email with some stuff we wanted to discuss. So I guess it probably would be nice that we discuss the stuff we've been doing and what we're up to, right? So let's start with the stuff we've done. How about that? Does that sound good? That's
Sure, sounds good. Want me to start?
Well, I guess, yeah. Sure. You're a victim.
I'm a victim, yeah, I know. So that's why, since I'm a victim, that's why I did the continuous integration migration. So if you remember, I think we touched a little bit on that topic last time. So one of the things Travis CI was not giving us was a proper presentation of the test results. And so we just decided to, after trying a few services, to just go to CloudBees. That's no setup. You've seen a few build failures into the Ehcache dev mailing list. These were caused by, there is a bug registered at the Jenkins plugin when sometimes they build pull request. I don't know why it fails, but...
Was it related to the fact that Ludovic's pull request was from the world's weirdest location? There was something slightly strange about his pull request, which might be related to what reason it failed.
It could have been that, yes. But no, the weird bit is that it failed on two. So I'm doing a metrics jobs, and I'm building on GDK 1.6, 1.7, and 1.8, and it built on one of the three, it built fine, and on the other two, it failed.
Wonderful.
So, but
is there any indication of how often that's going to cause spurious failures of pull requests?
I don't know. We'll have to check.
And so you said it's a bug with Jenkins?
Yes, it's a bug within the plugins.
We can't, because it's using the Java port of Git, right?
I have no idea. No. I think it uses a native Git client. Yeah.
Okay. So if it doesn't use native Git client, is there any way we can make it use native Git client?
Yeah, that's not the. But so, in short, the setup is done. It's presenting test results when you navigate the usual way. Then when you navigate on Jenkins instance, it's updating the pull request status when it's building stuff. There has been a hiccup in that because I changed the authorization token it was using, but it's not working. And so, in order to close that task, the only thing I want to do is send out a mail to the Ehcache dev mailing list, giving the link to the to the build.
So we basically have everything we had previously, i.e., building on 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, where once it's Sans Oracle, so it's not OpenJDK anymore. Cool. Maybe then the issue I had.
But I can add OpenJDK back, no problem. If you want to try. So for the moment, we have a matrix job, so for me it's pretty easy to add them. The only thing is we're going to consume minutes, and by consuming minutes, we may go over quota, but we'll see when that happens.
Right, let's keep it like this for now, I'd say. Especially as there was this type inference issue, I'm pretty sure it's, well, at least I never saw it using Apple's 1.6.
And so what I still want to do is then send out an email, and then once that's done, I'll open a new issue, which will be to properly set up the necessary credentials inside our Jenkins instance so that it can push snapshots and in the future releases out to the Sonotype repositories.
Okay.
And yeah.
Ooh, I clicked something. I have no clue what this is. So builds, I guess this is all Ehcache. So what's this repository there above, and what's this ecosystem, and what's this?
You can host a Maven repo there. You can host a Git repo, a Subversion repo, a CVS repo. I don't think we need these.
Oh, this is what all those repos are about. Okay, cool. So no, we don't need these. So we'll be pushing all this to Sonotype then at some point.
Yes. And so that will be my next task on that topic.
Cool. That looks good.
And that's it for me.
Almost too simple.
Well, Jenkins is a rich ecosystem, so you had to pick the plugin that worked.
Serious? Oh yeah, that was the plugin for what?
Requests, yeah, I tried one.
And is this using the Gradle wrapper thing, or is this using some?
So I've installed the Gradle plugin, but I've told him to use the Gradle wrapper. So that we use the Gradle version we bundle in the wrapper definition.
Cool. Well, that looks good. And how long did this take? 1 minute. What? No, so 16 minutes. Ooh, that's long though.
Yeah, it seems the last. So that's the pull request for the CHMV8. It seems we have a number of tests there, and some of them take some time.
Yes, we might want to revisit them.
That would be your fault, Alex.
Yeah, it's all my fault. Sure. I know.
Yeah, we probably should slim them. Well, I actually think there's value in keeping the long-running ones, but maybe we can move them to some other kind of phase. It doesn't have to run all the time, since they're not really unit tests per se.
Yeah. Yeah, I wondered. I think I settled on something eventually. You know, like there was all this weird stuff with hash codes, and I don't really remember. But I could have isolated more, but I kept it so that it runs basically time-based or something, or like many entries. So I sort of
many entries,
so that it you end up with a fair population in the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not necessarily searching. Well, it's not a unit test, and you're not trying to reproduce a specific bug. You're trying to trick it into failing a.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I know that was triggering the particular bug we knew about, but I could have reduced it to probably 3 or 4 entries, and it would have sufficed. But I've decided to keep it wide so that if something comes around, something else comes around later, right, that it fills. Because we know we have to do a bunch of changes within CHMV8, so it's actually pretty easy to do something wrong at one point, right? So that's why it is the way it is. But I'm perfectly fine. So should we create a task for that, or do we say we think about that when we come up with more testing things?
I would do it. I mean, you may as well create a task for it now.
The only thing is that I just quickly checked. It moved the build from around 1 minute to around 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Per matrix, per sub job, if you want.
And it's CPU cycles that we're built on. Because this, like,
we're not billed at all, but we're quoted.
We're quoted on minutes.
CPU.
What does it mean exactly? I didn't look into too
I would
much.
imagine it's probably wall time. You're probably entitled to burn the CPU hard for a certain amount of time. But
okay, then I guess we want to slim these down.
Because it's way easier to do the accounting that way, and it can't really be argued with.
And how many minutes do you say we have?
2,000 a month.
2,000.
We can actually burn through that pretty quickly.
That's 100 builds. It's
3 builds a day.
Well, not even. Oh, it's more actually. Right?
We've used 140 already. In 2 days.
Cool. That gives us a good incentive to keep our test really short.
So it does sound like we should fix it, and either in the sense of fix it now, or at least disable the tests, those tests for now, just to avoid burning through the quota.
Okay, I'm adding something. Rework.
Louis, is the bug you're talking about in Hudson's Git to do with the fact that Ludovic did a force push to the push force to the?
It seems to be linked, so that's probably a topic we may want to revisit at one point. Do we want?
It's not. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Do we want to keep force pushing on merge branches, also on pull requests, or do we say that at one point we would rather close and create a new, so that you always have a branch that has not been force pushed to? But that's.
I don't see any harm in doing it. Well, okay. I don't see any harm in force pushing before you create the pull request. There is a question about, Ludovic asked me this question earlier today, since we started talking about Git now, and we got plenty of time today. What do we mind which way you integrate changes that are result of a pull request, comments and pull requests? I.e., should people be? I guess there's 3 options: amending the last commit, creating and obviously force pushing, creating a new commit and regular pushing, or doing an interactive rebase and weaving the changes into the logical places they belong in the existing chain of commits. Does anybody have any opinions?
I wish I had listened.
Do you want me to repeat the three options, Alex?
No. Somebody makes a call. If somebody wants to have a call, otherwise
my opinion is I prefer having them in a commit at the end that says that it's accepting review feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably makes sense.
Because it's clearer what's going on, because you can weave the changes in, but then when you go and read the comments, well, first of all, I don't know what happens to the comments in GitHub if you rebase and then force push.
They would stay because the commits...
No, because you don't rebase, force push. Those changes don't exist anymore.
Yeah. So what I would say is that when the result of the pull request is a few fixes, it makes sense. But we should probably also not hesitate to say, if it's a major feedback that means rewriting.
Yeah, then you
most
should
of what
go
you've
back
done, then you just should close the pull request.
Yeah. Okay. So we're leaning towards, if it's minor stuff, do it in a commit and don't do a force push. If it's major stuff, close the pull request and create a new one. That way you are actually never doing a push/force to a live.
So hopefully one day this bug will be fixed. I really hate when you actually...
No. Wait. I wouldn't. I think the question from Chris is not just a reaction to the...
No,
it's a real question of process and how we work with pull requests and stuff.
I don't see where the harm is then with the force, right? Sometimes.
Well, the harm of the force is that the idea of a pull request is you're saying this code is out for review, which means I may have pulled it down to my local repo, and it's generally considered a bit evil to force push for something that someone else may have pulled.
Yeah.
But it's basically the act of creating a pull request is explicitly sharing that code.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it's pretty reasonable if someone goes and pokes through your fork and starts pulling down issue branches or dev branches. It's kind of unreasonable to think that person's not going to think that their private repo and they can force push what they're. But the moment you create a pull request and say, "I want this code reviewed," you shouldn't really start screwing with it too hard.
Yeah. Makes sense.
If you find yourself thinking this needs to be rebased or whatever, then you should probably close the pull request, rebase, and create a new one.
Yeah. Actually,
now this does have the side effect of hopefully avoiding that bug in.
No, but I like the statement that the pull request is a way of publicizing your branch.
Yeah.
And then, as soon as it's public, you're not supposed to push.
Force.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, let's try that. I'll update the dev git information with that, and let's see how it works. And we can change our mind later.
Yeah.
So I guess the next big thing that happened, and we sort of slightly touched on that, is the CHM v8 port that you did, Ludovic, right?
Right. Plus all the havoc I created in Git.
Nothing's permanent in Git, except the history.
So, what can I say about CHMV8? Well,
about your port mainly.
About my port.
All right. So you start from where then?
I took the code that ended up in JDK 8.
And that is.
But you didn't take it from JDK 8.
No, I didn't take it from JDK 8. I took it from JSR 166 interest website.
Did you actually write what is it? CVS, what is it that uses? Which revision it is?
Yeah.
No, I may have forgotten the CVS revision. So
you should rebase and amend the commit.
Of course.
You really want me to screw it up?
Well, that's okay. There's an interesting question, Louis. The classic place to record what it is that he committed is in the comment to say this is revision whatever. If his rebase is not actually going to change the content of the revision, but it's just going to edit the message.
Yeah, but it's a new commit anyway, so with what we've just discussed, it means closing
the
pull request, add that information,
and new pull request.
I think it'd be good to have this recorded somewhere, yes.
It makes sense, in a way.
Have fun, Ludovic.
Yeah, give me yet another opportunity to screw everything up again.
But what about when you do a pull request, and for example, your pull request is not perfect, and somebody's commenting on it and saying you should do this and that and so on, and why would you close this pull request and create another one?
No. We've said if that's the case, you can commit.
So that's the only exception.
Bear with Anthony. He's late to the meeting. He missed
Okay.
Sorry. So re-asking the question.
The process that I proposed, which everyone seems to think is good, is if you require, I could just force you to watch the recording, but I'll explain it again. If you find that you want to force push or rebase in any way your branch that you did the pull request on, don't. Basically, we're saying once you've done a pull request, you've explicitly shared the branch. You shouldn't do any kind of a push -- force. So at that point, you should close the pull request, which is sealing yourself off from the outside world again. Then you can rebase, and then you can reopen a new pull request. Now, the question of whether you should create a new branch to do the rebase in because you've explicitly shared the branch, but I don't think we should force people to do that. Unless, well, Louis is now nodding.
No. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Otherwise, I think you need to redo the branch because yeah.
Okay.
Just
new branch.
Another branch. Just add _1 to the branch name, whatever. So that's.
Okay. New branch.
If we play the game, we play the game all the way.
And again, rebase whichever way you want to pull the changes across.
Oh no!
Yeah. You can also just branch off where you are and then do the rebasing there, and whichever way however you want to get the changes in their modified form, do what you like. At some point, you're going to end up rebasing, so they're going to be by-value copies, and they won't be referentially linked to the previous ones. Blah blah blah.
Yep. And again, let's revisit if it becomes a pain.
You mean when?
All right, shall I go on?
Yep.
What was I saying? So I took the JSR 166 for JDK8 version of the code, and I tried to change it as little as possible, keep the files as intact as possible. So for that, I created a helper class, and in that helper class, I created shim interfaces for all the function interfaces, for the JDK8 lambdas, plus the streams and stuff like that. So I created shim interfaces. I also created a wrapper around sunmisconsafe because some new methods were added in JDK8 that are not present in JDK6 and that are used in CHMV8. So that's basically why you will see a JSR 166 helper that contains a bunch of interfaces plus a sunmisconsafe wrapper. And all the other classes, I tried to touch them as little as possible. I removed what needed to be removed. I renamed what needed to be renamed. I changed the imports. And for most part, that was it. So the change set is quite minimal. And the good thing is almost all features work. So compute, merge, reduce, all that, I did test, they work perfectly fine on JDK6. You just need to create, inner classes because you don't have lambdas, but other than that, works good.
Cool, that sounds good. And almost, you said, so is there anything that we know doesn't work?
Yes, splitterators.
I imagine.
Well, when I say doesn't work, it's not exactly that. It's just that there is a trick, a trap rather. The problem is I couldn't keep the splitterator method the way it is because if you try to compile it on JDK8, then you get a compilation error because it says, oh no, the return code clashes. Because on JDK8, splitterator is defined in the collection interface with a default implementation. Okay, so there is an implementation that is inherited in the CHMV8 class, and that returns a Java util, I can't remember what, splitterator, while my version returns Ehcache, whatever, splitterator interface. So that clashes, so I renamed it _splitterator. And and it works okay. The problem is, if you ever develop on JDK 8 and you need the split iterators, you have to make sure to use underscore split iterator. And that's going to be a pain because, yeah, I know if you work with interfaces like set, you have split iterator without the underscore, so it.
I don't think we need any of the stream of split iterator stuff at all.
No, I put a comment on the pull request in GitHub.
Yeah, you'd like to see them gone.
I'd gone disabled in some way. Stick a throw at the top of them. Stick a comment them out.
The only place they are harmful is a place we can't do anything about it. It's JDK 8. You will still have a split iterator default impl.
Yeah, that's fine. Better than nothing.
May break things up.
Well, you get that anyway because people that call split iterated straight are going to get the default one. And my understanding is split iterator is used to do parallel iteration across collections.
Yeah.
Which means that the JDK stuff's going to call the split iterator method, and you can't make the caller. On the whole, the vast majority of the calls to this method will not be being made by user code. They'll be being made by JDK classes.
Yeah.
So you can't change those.
Right. And anyways, right. I think we discussed that quickly somewhere in RSCO. I don't know, but the visibility of the class and exactly how we're gonna make it all work. I mean, we can conceal this again, right? The use case for all this is
tight.
Yes, and we should make it as tight. Yeah, we should exactly. We should make it as tight as possible, right? So that it doesn't go pollute every other as people stuff, right? So probably have it like package or something, visible only. Anyways, we'll see. I guess somebody has to do the work to actually like swap out the current on-heap store implementation with the CHMV8 stuff, because I don't think you did that, did you? Did you not? Did you?
I did it partially, so.
Well, yeah, for what was there?
As I'm going to, yeah, I did it in. I think there is a class called Ehcache. Over there, I modified it to use.
Yeah, but that's throwaway.
But I missed that there was the old CHMV8 implementation that I should replace. So I'll do that since I need to close the
yeah, that's fine.
Request.
Yeah, no, but that's what I was talking about is actually with an on-heap store that probably right now uses a CHMV8 from the JDK. My memory serves. Actually, I wrote that. I should know, but I don't. But it's fine. I'll have a look. Let's consider this done, and I know probably how to tackle this as part of implementing some of the other CRUD methods anyways.
Well, there's just one last thing that I also left out that I would like to see fixed. When you compile that code on JDK 8, it emits a lot of warnings saying, oh, you can't use, warning is dangerous to use a sun misconf safe. I would like to add some suppressions.
Oh yeah, it's not only on JDK 8, I think it's a little bit all over the place.
JDK 6, it doesn't complain at all.
So, oh no, I'm confused. I had another weird one around those things. So warning with Gradle that says you can't mix the bootstrap class.
Yeah, no, what you have is source 1.6, target 1.6 combined with no bootstrap class path setting.
Yeah.
What it's warning you about is you're using a 1.7 JVM to compile to target 1.6 classes, but you're compiling against a 1.7 library class. So it can't prove that you haven't used 1.7 specific libraries.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that was it. I don't pay much attention.
What it wants you to do is it wants you to specify on boot class path the RT.jar, the runtime jar from a 1.6 JDK.
Okay, that makes sense. Well,
I've never seen anyone do that. But since we have it running,
we don't care.
Yes, but since we have the build running on a 1.6 JVM anyway.
One last comment on the subject. The class I modified the most is thread local random. So I would appreciate that you concentrate your review upon that one.
But wait until a new pull request is created.
Yes, it will be created today.
Maybe. Okay. Cool. So awesome. So I guess the last bit we had is this SPI tester stuff, right? So maybe I should show my screen on this because then maybe the easiest. We can all have a look at the same thing. So basically, for all the SPIs, so today what we have in the 2x line, there is this cache test or something. It's being extended by a bunch of other tests to test different topologies, right? So basically what these should be testing is only the store. So what we wanted to do in this 3x line is to basically have some kind of way to test any SPI, and not only the one that come around, but that we provide, because it's given the modularity of the whole thing, but basically stuff that could live outside. So I think this one is now assigned to you, Hung. So let me share the screen. So basically the stuff that Chris and I talked about when we came up with this idea was basically something around those lines.
Command Shift Plus, please.
Yeah, is it if I go like...
That's good too. I'm being lazy and leaving it on a small monitor.
Is this...
That way you can look at my face.
This is probably very readable.
It is.
Cool. So basically, the goal is to write something around the lines of the first class there, right? Something where basically when I write my... It doesn't need to be this way. Tie it in wherever you want, so it relates to what we discussed with CHMV8, in what phase this should be written. I think this should be very unit testy-like. So basically, if I have my own heap store test, I would have one method there that basically simply tests the SPI contract that my on-heap store should obey.
Yeah, I mean, one way you could conceive of doing this is, so this is one way Alex has done it. The other way you can conceive of this is to write the store SPI as an abstract class, and then force someone to override methods for like this. This is a method it calls when it wants to throw an exception. This is a method it calls when it wants to create a class under test. This is a method blah blah blah.
Could you scroll down to my comment in the same page?
Oh wait, maybe I need to refresh. So I see comments. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah. So okay. So I guess the one problem we have with this is very JUnit.
Well, well, there's 2 problems. Well, one is so Aurelian, who is a QA engineer at Terracotta, for the people that are listening, is concerned that this be able to easily integrate into the infrastructure that the QA use to run tests. Specifically, they use TestNG. I will try not to put on a sad face. So you might get some resistance from Aurelian on that grounds. Can you scroll up, Alex? Sorry.
Like this? You see it all?
Yes. So the other problem here, of course, is that it's inverted the wrong way. You have the superclass providing a static list of implementations to test against. What we wanted to have was so if you imagine the SPI is defined in a module, Gradle module, Maven module, whatever.
All right. And
so in the same module, you define the test code, the SPI test code, the code that is a set of tests that any implementation of this SPI is supposed to be able to pass in order to be a correctly behaving implementation. And what we'd hoped was that it would be a case whereby you'd be able to compile that SPI test code into some kind of artifact, and then you would, and then somebody else who may be a Terracotta person, maybe a third party, maybe a user, whatever, who wants to implement that SPI, writes their module. They depend on, they have a compile time dependency on the SPI interfaces that they're implementing, and then write their implementation. And then they have a test scoped dependency on the SPI testing artifact that the SPI module publishes. And then using that artifact, they can basically write a little sort of test harness bootstrappy thing that executes the SPI test suite using their implementation. The key thing here being that the person that writes the SPI test suite has no idea what the complete set of all implementations is. They just write the suite, and then people use the suite in order to run it against their implementation that they've written. Does that make sense? I'm trying to see what Alex is writing.
Test that every store should pass. So if I look at this, this is basically store tester. So in this case, in this, this here defines.
It depends on
store Java. This runs unit tests on heap store and makes STCK.
And more importantly, what Alex has shown there is two modules that we might own, but in principle there might be some other module way out across the universe of Java code that we have no knowledge of that pulls it in the SPI test suite and wants to run it against, I don't know, some...
On the topic of showing, Alex, you need to select your window so that it's the one being broadcasted, because Clifford just made a comment in the Q&A. Yes, they're not seeing your screen, they're seeing whoever is talking.
Okay, so I clicked it. I don't know whether it applies to everyone. So, but basically, let me explain what the deps are, right? So the deps there is the directory structure, and somebody correct me then with regards to Gradle and Maven naming here. But basically, what I say is that in core source main, there is the store interface, right? There might be some unit tests for the core module, but we don't care. There is a TCK or whatever you want to call it. I'm reusing the JSP wording here. So there is a TCK that defines all the tests, right? So it's the equivalent of this class up here, right? And then basically in Impl, I create the class on heap store. I will test it. That's this class above here, right? And I want to be able to test it to make it test, basically make the TCK store test my implementation, right? So this is where I wrote it this way, which basically, as you can tell, right, decouples a couple of things like running the test from actually like throwing the exception that will provide a nice error reporting within whatever test framework you're using. So if you look at, that's basically the abstract, well, I went for abstract, but whichever way. So the super type, right, this SPI tester that knows how, that defines all those methods that we saw above. And then you got the store tester that extends this SPI tester, like expects a factory of stores, because that's what it tests, right? So it knows how to create a new instance of a store, and then it does stuff in the separate things. So this is add test method. I use the annotations, we can use whatever we want, so that this method here can actually find all the things it needs to invoke. But whichever way we want to go about this, it's not the add test annotation from JUnit. And so I run all my stuff up here. This runs all the method, throws some exception, right? Yeah. And that's, so if I go back here, basically the store interface is defined here. The TCK for the store is defined here. Now I define my own heap store, and in my testing, I can depend on core qualifier or whatever it's called, TCK, that will fold everything in I need in order to be able to run the store tester on top of my implementation. Plus all other tests that I might want to, that I could see are required in order to test my implementation. They are then become implementation specific.
The acronym TCK Alex is using is Technology Compatibility Kit, It's a phrase that he's borrowed from JCP, the JCP from JSR land, because this is exactly what happens with every JSR. Every JSR gets a TCK, which is designed to check that people who implement JSRs do so in a way that is compliant with the spec. If you pass the TCK, your implementation is a correct implementation, assuming that you're licensed to run TCK, which is a completely separate question. One thing I would say is the only reason Alex is going to great pains to say this is not JUnit, this is not the other, is not because we have a strong objection to JUnit. It's because Aurelian has a strong objection. It's because we suspect that in order to satisfy Terracotta QA that we might have to stay away from JUnit. So Hung, you might want to talk to Aurelian and figure out exactly what his requirements are in terms of being able to fold this stuff into the.
Right. And so I added 2 other lines there, and one advantage I see over the inversion that you have down there, Hung, is that like the tester doesn't know nothing about any implementation, but it's the other way around, right? Any implementation can just come around and say, doesn't need to know about others, right? So in this case, onHeap store knows nothing about some other store, and some other stores knows nothing about onHeap store. They just both pull this core TCK thing in and can validate that they pass.
Right. But I still see JUnit involved in there, so how do we get around not using JUnit?
Where's JUnit
not sure
involved?
about that at the upper level.
Here?
Yeah.
Right. They can be a dependency. The thing is you don't need to call this method, right? You could call like throw. This is just utility, right? The point of this is so that it throws an exception that JUnit understands means test failure. It can report all the tests that fail, because this obviously I ran a bunch of tests, right?
I mean, you don't need to do that. You can just have a test through Java lang assertion now.
Right. I thought it was just kind of neat to have it like for when we run it in Jenkins, so that when it fails, that you see directly exactly what failed.
If it runs through, if you test that, if you mark this, because test store SPI does depend on JUnit, because onHeap the person does. The JUnit test runner will pick up your Java lang assertion error and understand that it means the test failed.
Right, Chris, but then you can only throw a single one. I want to see all the failures of all the method, of all the thing that the.
Oh, you can throw an assertion error then. I guess so. I mean.
Oh, well, whichever way.
Anyway, the point being here, you don't need to satisfy me or Alex, you just need to satisfy Aurelian when it comes to swearing off JUnit.
Yeah, so, because basically this could have been like throw testng exceptions, so to please that, right? So, and this, by the way, could not throw, right? It just throws an exception that reflects whatever this thing above expects to see. So you could have another method here that's like print test report, and throw assertion error on a single thing failing, so that it breaks the build, and then somebody has to go to standard out to see like what exactly failed. Honestly, it's just as good to me. Maybe I was thinking a little bit too ahead with this method here. But basically here, anybody running this can invoke whatever he wants to make it fail. But we can decide that we fail it with an assertion error. I'm fine with that.
Stupid testng. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But what left to so we just have to implement this?
Well, the things left are to figure out whether what Alex has written is not compilable, and there are, I don't know, if Aurelian didn't exist, or the needs of Terracotta QA didn't exist, I would do all this with testng. Jesus.
Oh, he's confused.
My brain is completely addled. Feels like Friday. I would do all of it with JUnit. What I would do is try and meet up with Aurelian and figure out, because Alex and I talked to Aurelian, I couldn't quite figure out what he wanted. So figure out basically what his actual requirements are in terms of integration with the test infrastructure, blah. Or even, I mean, or it doesn't have to be Aurelian. You could talk to anyone within QA. If you can basically, if you can figure out how this stuff would integrate, so they can run these tests within their magic testy stuff,
right?
Then and as long as we can make it work in that environment, then we're fine.
Maybe I wasn't entirely clear, by the way, Hung. It can have a compile and even a runtime dependency on JUnit internally. That's perfectly fine. The coupling that I understood they want to avoid is they want to be able to use that to run against some implementation, and then when it fails, that it breaks their test framework.
It's the reporting
in the way that it expected to. Right, that's the report. This is why I had this throw JUnit exception, and you could have a throw testng exception. You could have a throw assertion error. You could put whatever you want there. Basically, it's this final thing that breaks some way the thing that called into it. Does that make sense?
Yes. The hardest part of this task may be figuring out exactly what QA need and not actually doing it.
No, I think implementing this isn't too hard. Though, by the way, part of it, Hung, is the framework, but I think part of it is also writing the the tests on the store. Right?
The store stuff.
So
that will take you a good deal longer.
And probably jumping through a few hoops in Gradle to make sure that we have the proper split.
Yes.
Build the jars, etc., etc.
Oh, but the good news is he can create another task for that and assign it to you.
Yeah.
Is that not the deal?
Yeah.
If it says Gradle, if it begins with a G, then it belongs to Louis.
That is it then, right? Or is there anything we did or plan on doing in the immediate future that is of some relevance other than actually?
I was going to say, just because Hung needs more things to digest, when it comes to writing the tests, I might have some stuff that you might find interesting to read. But we might want to have a discussion about.
All right, no, that we can cover. So basically, the tests that need to test the SPI need to be based on the Java doc, right? So actually, we discussed that yesterday. So I currently am working on issue 61, if my memory serves. Yes, that actually is about adding Java doc to the store type. Let me put it this way for now, right? That hopefully are somewhat testable then for you to test on. I'm sure you will find things that when I do the pull request, hopefully today, well, probably worst case by your tomorrow morning, there should be stuff that will be testable in there. But I wouldn't be surprised if you come back at me, say, hey, Alex, this doesn't mean much, or this is not enough, this is not testable.
Well, I'm not trying to be a tester, so I'd rather not write any responsible for writing tests.
These are going to be dev tests. They're closer to sort of BDD style. We are going to be responsible as developers for these tests. They are not going to be a QA concern because they're not going to be testing a public API.
Right.
Though working unit tests in that respect.
Right. Though we said that, and I also, I'm somewhat with Hung on that too, right? I think given the those things we might want to do in the future, it might be good to actually have some QA people there. But
well, do the framework first, and then we can see where we are. And by that point, we may know some availability on some QA resources.
Well, whatever you assert anyways, Hung, I think you should be writing the initial sort of on-heap store tester thing, or store tester that uses then the on-heap as a factory or whatnot, because that's probably the easiest way for actually you making sure you're building something that makes sense, even if the tests themselves are not necessarily the best in the world, right? It actually puts the framework, the test framework on the test.
Actually does what it needs to.
Right.
Proof of concept.
Exactly. Alrighty.
We've only got 15 minutes left.
I was actually re-looking at the waffle board.
Did you want me to paste the link to the guide on how to write these things? And what happens if I paste something into the group chat? Does it appear in the recording?
I doubt that, but what you could do is actually you could send it to me, and I'll put it in the notes when I update the meeting notes on the wiki.
Or send it to the dev mailing list.
Yeah, that certainly. Yeah, that would be one way of sending it to me. Certainly.
I will do that in a minute. It's a very long and boring read. Well, I would skim it first if I were you.
That's not the way to present it
Sell
to
it.
others. You've just lost.
So I understand where Hung's coming from. I do writing these SPI tests in a very formalized manner is not fun. It is agonizingly painful.
No, but the good news is that what's there today on the Store API is basically so brain dead that actually it is writable for now. It's going to become way more complex.
It is
very soonish.
Yeah, it is a very important task because it forces you to actually think really hard about the contract that you're specifying and whether it actually makes any sense and what actually because what you end up testing is basically you end up writing a test for all the behaviors that a independent user could rely on. And if that implies if you can't write many tests, there's not much to rely on, which means it's not very useful.
Though in this case, it's not that, right? It's not a user. In this case, we know who the user is, and in our case, it's the cache, right? The cache will be the one consumer of that.
Right. If there aren't many testable assertions, it might be an implication that the cache is relying on undocumented behaviors, which is in and of itself.
Right. So that's more the thing. But I guess we'll learn as
it's a little bit back.
We do have a TCK framework that utilize the Java JCK, I assume.
You don't want to use that. I wrote
that. No, but the concept is it run in its internal testing and it do a report in the end how many errors that it encounter and so any test harness could just call it and check for the results.
It could. You could use that. You may want to look at that. My suspicion is that thing might be a little bit too heavyweight. Because thing's really designed to be run out of process. It's designed to be run on a published artifact and not in the reactor, to use a Maven term.
But we don't want to run to stop the test suite as soon as it hit a exception, right? We want to run the whole suite and then collect the result.
Yes. So have a look at it and see what you think about it, about that stuff. I think I know what stuff you're talking about at least. So certainly have a look at it and see what you think. But I would have a slight concern. It's a long time since I've looked at it, but I have a slight concern it might be a little too heavyweight. Have a go and see.
Yeah, basically we wanted to decouple from the actual unit testing framework that we use to run it because of QA versus engineering, JUnit versus TestNG. And as you said, Hung, right, it shouldn't stop at all. It should keep on running, do all the rest, and then show, oh, this thing failed this and this and this thing.
Right. I'd rather it just return a result object somehow, and then you could just whatever test harness you're using, you can check if you have any error and what's the exception according to regarding the errors.
Right.
Yeah, we could go with that model.
Cool. Well, I guess that is it, right? So more work to happen in the near future on implementing a bunch of those CRUD methods on the cache in hopefully a more or less resilient way. And as soon as we get to issue 48, which isn't too far off, it actually means we have a working on Ehcache for the very basic meaning of it. And then we'll dive into more fun stuff like lifecycle, cache loaders, and so forth. All right. Cool. That is it, I think. Right, there is this. All right, so I guess Clifford says that, by the way, throwing an assertion error, I just see this now, sorry, I didn't have the QA thing open. So throwing an assertion error has the same effect. Yes, it does, but basically...
What, Alex?
Yeah.
But that's to do with identification that it's a test suite, not a test method. There are ways of doing that, but I don't think there's a transparent way of...
And if we got it, it's fine. I mean, honestly, basically, even if we need to rerun the thing locally, right? The TCK tester should be, it should be pretty like a good test suite, hopefully at some point, right? It's basically only there so that you know that when you change something, that you don't break something fundamental to the way that a store should behave. And if you create a new store out of the blue, that you inherit this huge test suite as a whole. It's not like it's going to fail like randomly every now and then, hopefully. So, cool. I guess, Hung, you go have a look at something, you create some magic, and enlighten us all after that. All right. Chris is off working on something already, so I guess...
I'm writing the email I said I would write.
That is awesome.
Doing me.
All right, cool. Well, so much on this then, and we'll see each other next week at the latest.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.
Bye.